Who wants to talk about the essential traits of successful entrepreneurs? I do. Yeah, we're going to talk about the essential traits of what makes a entrepreneur successful, the essential traits that you must have in order to make that entrepreneurial leap in the first place and start your own business. And last week we talked about one of the most important, if not the most important one, is the element of being responsible, taking responsibility for your outcomes, and not playing the proverbial blame game, right? We talked about how if it is to be, it's up to me. That mentality, where even if you get a franchise, let's say you start a franchise and they've promised you the world, they promised you that they're going to handle everything from the marketing to the booking of appointments and all the stuff that goes into running a successful business. They're going to handle a lot of that stress for you. They're going to handle a lot of that workload. And let's say you get into that franchise and maybe that's not exactly the case. Maybe they're running some marketing campaigns for you and you're getting a decent amount of lead flow, but you want to scale up your business and they're not really maybe providing the resources necessary. What are you going to do about it? You're going to whine, you're going to cry about it, you're going to blame other people, you're going to sit around and just wait for the phone to ring, or are you going to get to business and actually take charge of your own business? Because regardless of if you have a franchise or if you're an entrepreneur that started your own business, the buck stops with you. And we talked about how that is an important trait that you must have in order to step into business ownership for yourself. You've got to take that responsibility on, and you've got to be a kind of person that believes that no matter what, I am going to be the one that's in charge of my own success. And if you have that trait within you, then that's a good sign that you're going to become a successful entrepreneur. But there's a bunch of other traits that goes into making that decision. If you got to self-reflect, see if you have those traits within you, and we're going to talk about some more of those traits in this episode today. And those traits that we're going to focus on today, buckle up, they're exciting ones, and we're going to match two together. Okay, we're going to talk about you got to understand the big picture. You got to be able to see things in the big picture sense. And you also have to be goal-oriented and able to see the big picture. Those are the two that we're going to focus on today. But before we dive into that, we're coming off of the end of the NFL regular season. Yeah, that's right, the end of the NFL regular season. So that leaves over half the league's fan bases sitting around twiddling their thumbs waiting for next year. All right, the playoffs have been set. Unfortunately, my favorite team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, I know, probably not the best team to hitch your wagon to if you like postseason success, but they're a lovable bunch of folks, and they just couldn't quite make it happen this year. Our magic season last year, we weren't able to continue that momentum and bring it into this season and take that next step forward. Ended up with the same number of wins we had last season, and they gave us an extra game to try to get an extra win out of it, and couldn't quite make it happen. And so we just missed the playoffs. It was a must-win game yesterday, lost by 8. And so now we're refocusing on next year, right? And that's, by the way, we got to be big picture. But it's hard. It's really hard. Let's just be honest. As fans of a team over which we have no control, other than we give them a couple bucks every year in gear that we can walk around and give them free advertising. And so we pay to advertise for them. That's a mixed up thing, isn't it? Shouldn't they be paying us to wear their logos? I mean, come on. There's a law firm here in Florida that pays a guy at a restaurant that we frequent $1,300 a year to drive around with their logo on the side of his car. Come on, can't we get the Jacksonville Jaguars to fund me every time I put on one of their T-shirts? Let's start that campaign. But back to the original point. As fans of a team, it's really challenging to see the big picture when you're emotional in the moment. So we're sitting there at our favorite local watering hole, as they say. It's a duck pins bowling facility. It has a pretty neat bar upstairs, and we've become good friends with the owners and all the bartenders there. And so we like to go there. They give us free teal shots every time we score, and so that's why wouldn't you want to go to a place like that? But we're all sitting there. All of us are fans. We've been there for every game this season, and by gummit, they just couldn't make it happen. And so we're all emotional. Let's bench. Fire Trevor Lawrence. He's a bum, right? No, Doug Peterson. Time to get rid of him. Yeah, he sucks. And Calvin Ridley, or wide receiver, who was supposed to be, kind of my wife hates this phrase, but game changer, right? He's supposed to be a game changer. Golly, he just drops passes left and right. Let's just overhaul the whole team. Let's start from scratch. All right, that's real easy to say from our bar stools, isn't it? Where you could just make those decisions unilaterally. You don't understand we have no idea how these contracts are made up or what really goes into calling plays. And we're sitting here talking about, let's fire Press Taylor, our play caller, offensive play caller, and we have no clue what the heck we're talking about. So hopefully Shad Khan and the ownership group there and the GM, Trent Baalke, can all put their heads together and keep their eye on the big picture, which is not just 2023 success, right? We're looking downstream, building a team that can have some consistency and cohesiveness going forward. So is it the best idea to fire the entire coaching staff and start from scratch? We've already done that once. And yeah, we took a couple strides forward, but we didn't really make a lot of noise this season, down the stretch especially, finished 1-5. And hopefully the people that are in control of the team that we love have the big picture in mind, right? Which is why teams like the Kansas City Chiefs or the Pittsburgh Steelers, they have this sustained success because they're going to stick with them through hell or high water, right? The good times and the bad times. They're not going to make knee-jerk reactions and fire everybody and start everything over from scratch. That's what the loser teams do, right? The loser teams, the Carolina Panthers, that guy that owns the Carolina Panthers, can't remember his name right now. We played the Jacksonville Jaguars played the Carolina Panthers last week. Blew them out. It was 26-0 or something ridiculous. They're just a garbage franchise. Terrible team. The guy who owns it is one of those knee-jerk guys. I mean, he's a successful billionaire, so I can't criticize the guy too much. He's obviously doing something better than I'm doing because I don't own an NFL team, and I'm not a billionaire. But you know what? He doesn't keep the big picture in mind in the sports arena. He makes knee-jerk reactions. And last week, at Jacksonville, one of the Jacksonville fans was giving him lip, I guess, through the entire game, and he made the knee-jerk reaction instead of keeping the big picture in play. He threw a drink on the guy from his owners, from the luxury suite box that he was sitting in, tossed a drink over right into this fan's face, and obviously he's gotten some scandal and whatnot, and people are clamoring, he should get the team taken away from him. Keep the big picture in mind, guys. All you fans out there that are calling to have him sell the team, keep the big picture in mind. You honestly think the NFL is going to make him sell the team because he threw a drink on some drunk yahoo at a football game? No. They're going to make him sell the team if he gets convicted of a federal offense, right? Or if he says something horrifically racist or misogynistic. Then yeah, they're going to make him sell. They're going to force his hand to sell. Just look at the Washington football team. What are they called now? The Commanders, right? They made him change the name, and they made him sell the team. And because they're keeping the big picture in mind. They got to do what's best for the league. Our ownership team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, has got to keep the best interest, the big picture in play. And so, back to the original point here. Thanks for letting me vent. I appreciate it. I'm sure this folks turning off. By the way, there's always a skip bar there. Just go ahead and skip ahead to where you get to something that I'm talking to that makes any logical sense to you. We're going to talk about keeping the big picture in mind and being goal oriented before you start your franchise, before you even think about starting a franchise or starting your own business from scratch. You've got to be able to sit down and visualize that big picture. And what does that look like? Okay. What does that look like? Let's talk about practical applications of this big picture mentality here. All right, you're going to start this business. Okay. This is a spoiler alert for you. It's not going to be a multi-million-dollar producing machine from day one. Okay. Franchise or not. It's not going to be that. You know what it's going to be when you start? A new business. So if you're getting into business to have immediate success in month 1, month 2, you're not going to be satisfied. Okay? You've got to keep the big picture in mind. 1 year, 2 year, 3 year chunks, right? And that's where the goal-oriented concept comes into play too. Setting realistic expectations for what that business can achieve and needs to achieve and should achieve downstream. You also have to keep in mind what the exit strategy is when you're starting this business. Okay, it's not like starting a job. Okay, when you have a job, that job is finite. It can end at any moment. You don't own anything, nor are you in any control of that other than your own performance. But when you own a business, you can have that as part of your big picture that you're looking at. Is how long do I want to own this business? Do I want to build it up and sell it after 18 months? That's doable. I've got a client right now that's on his third franchise. He's like 30 years old, man. He started a franchise in the home services space and sold it after like 12 months, maybe 14 months. Started another home services franchise, sold it after about 2 years in business for a pretty good chunk of change, about 600 grand. Pretty cool, right? After putting in maybe 150 grand into the business startup, sell it for 650 grand after reaping the rewards of all the cash flowing and net profitability of that business. It's a pretty good deal now. Now he's on to his third business. It's another home services franchise. He loves those things because they make a lot of money if you get into the right one. You've got the right mindset and mentality to do that type of a business. It can be very profitable. Now he's on to his other one, and he told me the other day, don't worry, man, I'll be doing this again real soon and buying another franchise after I sell this one. So that's part of it. He's keeping that big picture in mind. He knows I'm going to build this business and I'm going to sell it and then I'm going to start from scratch again and do it again and again and again. And eventually I'm going to be a guy who's worth 10, 15 million bucks, right? That's big picture thinking. That's goal oriented thinking. So don't be myopic when you're looking at your franchise ownership opportunities or your just entrepreneurial ownership opportunities. Keep that big picture in mind. And so we're gonna talk about how to do this in a practical sense. And I'm gonna really focus right now on the concept of first things first. Okay, even though we're going to be big picture oriented, we have to have an order of operations here and understand what that needs to look like for you in your particular situation. And so I talk to a lot of people that come to me and they're looking at buying a franchise. They want to get in. Obviously, that's why they're reaching out to me, right? I run ads and do all the stuff. And people contact me to help them through the process to find the right franchise. And we always start with a skills assessment, the entrepreneurial traits assessment. Sound familiar? Right? We're going to start with that, figure out what makes them tick. If we find any glaring, areas that maybe they don't have within them, right? The big picture, the goal-oriented stuff, we're going to help them to either develop that or give them some resources that they can develop that on their own through either books or audio programs, et cetera. And but when I talk to people, a lot of people really don't understand what the first things first means. And so we're going to give you a couple different options, a couple different ideas here in that. And so first things first. All right, let's talk about just different types of people. So I'm working with a client right now who is she's a seasoned business owner. She has a marketing company, a recruiting company, and has done some home services in the past. Owned a racetrack. I mean, she's a pretty good entrepreneurial lady, and she also has a job. Okay, she has a 9 to 5 job, and her first things first is she would like to leave that 9 to 5 job, but it does provide a pretty good level of income for her. She makes about 80 grand a year from this 9 to 5 job. It's adjacent to one of her businesses, the recruiting business that she's able to operate, and it's not a conflict of interest for her and her company that she works for. And so she's got all these like irons in the fire, as they say, right? She makes like 90 grand from one, 120 from another. She's pulling in about 300 plus a year of personal income, but she would like to eventually transition out of that 9 to 5 job. Her husband has a great job. He works for the government. He's got great benefits. He makes a good income. He's not planning on leaving that. And so they've got a lot of really good options. And so when we're looking at first things first, we don't have to take into consideration the immediate income level, because that's not really going to be the thing that she's thinking about, right? She is thinking long-term strategy, right? And also culture fit. And so we're looking at a brewery concept. We're looking at a marketing type franchise as well that could be a nice tuck into her existing marketing business. And we're looking at a wine franchise. She likes the idea of the wine and the brewery concept because it scratches the itch of, hey, I just want to own a cool business that I can go to, interact with the public. I can take some pride in the fact that I'm providing a fun environment for people to go to watch a football game or to hang out with their friends, do a bachelor party or bachelorette party, and have some live music come in and play these at this venue, and just a lot of that lifestyle stuff, right? And so with her, first things first is, hey, let's just find a business that's cool, that matches your skill set, that will eventually provide the income that you're looking for to eventually leave the 9 to 5 job that you're in, and then to start building some real assets for her and her net worth, right? And so that's a fun client to work with. It's we've got a lot of options and a lot of opportunities. Plus, she's got the capital to make really basically anything happen, which is pretty cool. And so that's one thing. So for our first things first is we've got a lot of options. We can do a lot of really neat stuff. And I work with a lot of clients like that have, a good amount of money. They've got a great income that's going to continue to go as they're working this business up, building this business up. And it's a long way of saying they don't need to take money out of the business that they're starting. Okay. So if that's you, that's the kind of discussions that we're going to have as franchise advisor, business advisor, entrepreneur, coach, whatever the heck you want to call me. We're going to be able to have those kind of conversations, or you're going to be able to think through your life like that. Now let's talk about maybe an opposite type of person. Let's talk about somebody who's let's say they're making 80 grand a year. Okay. And they need that income level. Okay. They need at least that amount of money to fund their lifestyle, but it's a job they hate. They don't want to do this job anymore. Maybe it's in an industry that fluctuates a lot, and they've gone through layoffs, and they're just sick of going through that rigmarole. All right. That is, whoa, now we have some complexities thrown into this equation, don't we? Yikes. Okay, now we have to get to the drawing board and really start to think about it. Obviously, nothing changes with the first things that we have to do. We got to figure out the skills. We got to figure out the traits and figure out what makes them tick and the kind of stuff that they're good at. They want to have employees, they not want to have employees, et cetera. All the stuff that we need to think about when finding the right type of business and coaching them through that. But we also have that new added little wrench being thrown into the mix of they need 80 grand a year, which is about 60 some odd $100 a month of personal income as quickly as possible so we can achieve the goal of getting the heck out of that job that they're in that they don't like. Well, when that's the case, and let's talk about capital too before we get into that's the case. Let's say they've got 40 grand liquid capital sitting in a bank account, okay? And any franchise you're going to want to start that's going to be worth its investment, it's probably not going to be below $60,000 to $65,000 total investment to get the doors open. More if you need to keep your job and run that business semi-passive. Okay? So just keep that in mind. So now you're talking 90 grand to 100 grand. You need in order to, to fund that business, to get it off the ground and keep it operational until it's cash flow positive. So with that 40 grand that they've got in the bank account, what are we going to do? Well, we got to borrow, right? If we want to get this done quickly. Luckily, it's a very small amount, not that hard to do, not a high monthly payment on that deal there, plenty of options, especially if you're going to keep the job and run it semi-passive, which in our scenario here, that's the case. So that's what we got to think about, okay? We need to get them into a business that can cash flow enough to have enough liquid or enough net profitability every single month to take out of that business. You're going to have to form an LLC, by the way, so there's not many rules on what you withdraw from the company as long as you keep your company solvent. We need to get it to $6,500 per month that we can draw out of that business and not hurt the business, okay? So we have to take that into consideration when we're doing this while keeping the big picture in mind. Right? What do they want to do? They want to leave their job at some point. They want to have a business that they can be proud of, that they can grow and have substantial income out of and live off of that income and then eventually sell it. Right? And so that's the big picture that we're keeping in mind. We're now having goals because we need to get this thing to $6,500 per month in net profit every single month so I can leave my job. That's being goal oriented. And we got to get things up and running. So now our options are quite a bit smaller than our first scenario. So now we got to look at, okay, we got this. We got to do $6,500 a month. Okay, what business can we get into to do that our overhead is going to be low? We got to start doing all these things. So we're going to build out what's called a pro forma. Okay, a pro forma is essentially educated guessing because the business doesn't exist yet. So you have to go off of industry averages. You have to go off of what's written in the item 19 of the FDD. If you don't know what that is, hit up our website, revfran.com, go to the resources section, look up the FDD resources there, and find out what item 19 is. But I'll tell you, it's the financial performance representation. So the financial performance representation is going to be our guide to getting us some of the numbers that we need to plug into our pro forma to figure out how quickly and make some educated guesses. How quickly can we get to $6,500 a month of net profit? Okay. There are franchises out there. You could probably do that in the first month of business. They exist. Okay. They're likely going to be service-based businesses that don't have a heavy amount of inventory that you need to move. You're not going to have brick and mortar. Most likely to get to that, I'm telling you right now, if you're starting like and I talk to franchise candidates who are like, oh, I want to get into the health juice, the juice business, right? Because I like juices. And I think that's, people like juices. Yeah, okay, people like juices. Great. So you're going to have to get a location. Okay, that's going to skyrocket your initial investment. If you have a brick and mortar location, it's going to have to be a good location too, because who wants to drive to Timbuktu to get juice? Probably not many people. So it's going to have to be like adjacent to something that people are already going to. So it's going to be nearby a major thoroughfare or somewhere that people are going to be, maybe a downtown area. And so real estate ain't cheap when you do that, when you're getting into something like that. So now your initial investment is, you're talking 3, 4, 5, 600 grand. Get something like that off the ground. Now you got all the initial food inventory to add into that. And now you got employees because you're not going to be running the blender and taking people's payments all at the same time. So you got a couple employees there. That's going to drive up your overhead and your initial investment. Whew. Now, boy, that's going to be real hard to get to $6,500 of net income in the first month or two, isn't it? Yeah, it is. And, most of those franchises are doing, franchises and just startup businesses, you're doing probably 400 or 500 grand a year of top line revenue with, against expenses of 350 grand on your cost of goods sold and your overhead. And so you're talking, yeah, maybe 50 grand you can make on that business. Whew, it's going to take you a long time. Now you got to have two stores. What happens when you have to have two stores? You got to have another investment of 400 or 500 grand to have two stores just to make that 100 grand. That's probably not going to happen for our friend who's needing to get the heck out of his job and get into something else. And so he's got to start looking, he or she, I don't want to, just be gender agnostic here. So he or she or they or whatever you want to call them, is needing to find a business that can cash flow enough to be cash flow positive is within that first month or two. They've got to get to the point where they're netting $6,500 a month in order to achieve their goal, leaving their job and going full time into this business. And so, like I mentioned before, there's going to be franchises out there that can do that for you. They're going to be service-based franchises. Okay, think home services, think cleaning, think even business services, right? Like senior care. That's a good one. Senior care, man, you could do that. You could do that pretty quickly. I don't know about it in the first month or two because it takes a little time to get the traction going. But let's say month 3, 4, or 5, you're gonna start getting to that level pretty quick as long as you're sticking to the program. Business services, your marketing type franchises where you can go out and you can find some clientele and they're going to either pay you to do some marketing stuff. There's some good marketing franchises out there. There's some terrible ones. Call us if you want to know the difference. But it's going to be service-based, right? No inventory, could be home-based, low initial investment, 60, 70 grand to get the doors open, especially if you can somehow orchestrate it where you're the owner operator and you're able to keep your job, which those do exist. By the way, they're a little bit fewer and further between because if it's going to be service-based business and you're going to need to have somebody there keeping an eye on stuff at all times to field marketing leads that are coming in. But if you can work around your work schedule, that's even better, right? But so our first thing is we need to get a business that can replace the income level of our friend who's looking at this franchise, that is looking to get into business here for themselves. So that's the very first thing that we got to do. So we find that franchise, they get that franchise open, bada bing, bada boom, going. But let's say that this person also has the aspirations of earning more than that 70 grand a year, 80 grand a year. Let's say they want to earn 250 grand a year. Well, good news, we can do that because our franchises that we're going to align them with are single investment scalable, which means you make your one investment, and as long as you're willing to stick to the program and dump money into advertising, you're never going to have to make another initial investment again until you hit market saturation, which won't happen for 5 or 6 years, maybe longer. And so you can continue to scale that business out to become a multi-million-dollar producing entity where you're earning 3, 4, 5, 600, 800 grand a year, sometimes well over $1 million a year. Work with many clients that they've gotten to that kind of income level just off of one single unit franchise. Okay, then those exist. But let's say our friend also maybe wants to get into real estate or having other completely passive franchise ownership options where they can just invest money and not put any time into it. Again, those do exist, but they're not where we're at now. That's why we got to keep that big picture in mind because we need to get what's first done first, replace our income. We can do that. Great. We did that. We replaced their income. Now we're on to our big picture of getting the other types of businesses or maybe even some real estate in play. We're gonna do another episode of this podcast where we break down the differences and what you should do if you have a certain amount of money. Let's say if you got 50 grand, should you buy real estate or should you buy a franchise? By the way, if you noticed the title of this franchise, you could probably tell where we're going to lean on that, but we're going to go down that path at some point here. But our friend here who wants to get into other types of businesses, or they want to start building their net worth through acquisition of real estate. Well, after they've replaced the income, what they need to keep their lifestyle where it is. And here's another thing that happens. Their lifestyle is probably going to increase as their income increases, just like it does for everybody. So he's probably going to be 200 grand a year now and going, yeah, all right, at least living a 200 grand a year lifestyle. So he might want to stay real focused on building that business until he gets to that next level. But either way, regardless, no, I don't want to make any decisions for him. It's his life or her life. But they want to start getting into like buying some real estate. Now you can take the money that you're netting from this business and use it as your proof of income when you're going in to get a loan to buy a real estate, maybe a 4-unit apartment complex or a 100-unit apartment complex, or just a single family home that you want to Airbnb. I don't care what it is, but it's going to require some monies that you're going to be going to the bank to get. So he or she can now leverage 80% of the acquisition of a new business, use his proof of income as his LLC, which is producing income, irrespective of his in daily involvement in that. They don't care. They just want to see if you got the income coming in. They don't care how it's coming in. And he can then buy some real estate, keeping in mind his big picture of what he wants his life to look like. 4 or 5 years down the road, 2 or 3 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 1 year down the road. Probably not 1 year, by the way, because you can't use just 1 year of tax returns. You can if you're really, you know how the banks work, I guess. But regardless, going to be going in and using his business income to get his net worth where he wants to get. Millionaire, 10 millionaire, what do they call it? Decamillionaire, hectamillionaire, whatever he wants to become, right? But it's all about taking each one of those steps as they come, knowing how to do that, and keeping the big picture in mind at all times while checking off all of those little goals along the way. And that's another scenario, case study, I guess, if we want to use a dorky term for it. Another case study for you. And there's any other types of person that comes into this. The only caveat to all of this is, number one, you need to know yourself. Number two, man, you got to be realistic with what you are and where you're at in your life. If you're a 25-year-old person who's relatively unemployed, who works for, he's got a side hustle with Uber, maybe he's got a vending machine or two. And I know that sounds like a very specific example. Just got off the phone with one of those not that long ago, and that conversation goes like this. See me when you're ready. Here's a couple resources to get you ready. Probably going to be a year or two down the road, if not longer. But anyway, I digress. Back to the original point. Then we'll wrap this thing up for you. Entrepreneurial traits everybody must have. We've talked about being responsible, taking on the responsibility of your own outcomes. You check that one off, right? My wife also hates this one. We checked that box. She doesn't like that phrase for whatever reason. I told her today it was a game changer. But once you check that one off, move on to the big picture and the goal oriented. All right, you need to assess yourself. Do you have goals? Do you have goals? Do you want to? In this they call it designing your life, right? Do you want to design your life? Do you know what that looks like? What you want your life to look like in 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years down the road? Maybe even 10 years, 20 years, if you really take a good look at the big picture. Sometimes it's hard to see because you don't know where you're going to be at that long. That's why I never talk to people about their 20-year goals. Right? We keep things in realistic chunks, in chunks you can see, 1, 3, and 5. All right, you want to do that. I want you to, if you're seriously considering becoming a business owner, if you are serious about being a business owner or a franchise owner, entrepreneur, whatever you want to call it, These are the traits you must have. And so write them down. And I want you to take a moment with this idea of big picture and goal oriented. Right? And I don't want you to get into the weeds. That's part about being a big picture guy or gal. Write down your 1, 3, and your 5-year goals. Where you want to be. Take an assessment of yourself, where you want to be. Don't let the details get you way down. This is big picture stuff. Don't let the details, don't get in the minutia, don't get in the weeds. What do you want your life to look like 1, 3, and 5 years from now? Then take a look at you where you're at now. Okay? Where you're at now, and be honest with yourself. Where am I at now? What areas do I need to improve on to get me to that 1, 3, and 5-year goals? Okay, what areas do I need to improve on? Whether it be your sales abilities, whether it be your understanding of digital marketing, whether it be your mindset. Maybe you got a mindset issue, right? But really take an assessment of yourself, where you're at today, and what things need to improve to get you to those goals, right? And hopefully those goals that you're writing down are not things that are easily accomplished or things that you've already accomplished. These should be things you have yet to accomplish, things you've yet to do. And just to know, if you're going to get something you've never had, you must do something you've never done. So you're likely going to have to make a couple little adjustments in what you're doing. Maybe it's what you're reading, or what you're putting into yourself, or maybe it's your fitness level. It could be your fitness level. All right, I had a guy. This is off topic, but I'll share it anyway. Story time. We're shopping at the Aldi. It was the worst Aldi I've ever been to in my entire life. My wife were there doing some grocery shopping while one of our daughters was at a birthday party at one of those cool Ninja Warrior type gyms. They got trampolines and they got bars set up everywhere and a warped wall. It was a cool place. Pads everywhere, things you could jump off and land on big pads, and just a really neat place. Anyway, so we drop her off there. By the way, those are pretty cool businesses. So then there's franchises that exist like that. Give me a call if you want to talk about them. They're pretty cool, but they're not going to solve our second guy's thing. Know that. Anyway, we were at the Aldi. And we're hanging out at this Aldi, doing our shopping, and it's just a dump of an Aldi. And it shouldn't have been because it was in a nice area, but it was just absolute haywire. Things were it looked like an Aldi that you would have seen in the movie Zombieland. Okay, everything's been picked over. There's the freezer burn all over everything in the freezer section. Just an awful place. But we get up to check out, and it didn't scare us off enough, right? We're cool with zombies, whatever. So we're going to check out. We put all our stuff on the little conveyor belt there, and this guy, the checkout guy, he was not what one would call a fitness guru. Okay, he didn't look like Chris Hemsworth. Okay, he definitely didn't look like Chris Hemsworth. He's sitting back there, by the way, not standing, sitting behind his checkout thing, scanning stuff, and he says to me, and I was buying protein powder, and he goes, "Hey, I would never buy this protein powder here from us. I don't trust it." Okay, why? And he goes, "Well, I don't trust any protein that has the creatine mixed in." All right. I mean, maybe that's right. Maybe that's good advice. Right? Maybe that's good advice. I don't know. I don't know enough about it to say anything else about him. But the optics really didn't say that this guy knew anything about his fitness level, right? Or giving me advice on my fitness level, or giving anybody any advice on fitness. He was what most would call a sluggard. And so he got done scanning us. I, of course, bought the protein powder. I did not take his advice. Bought the protein powder. And so, hopefully it doesn't kill me, but I bought it anyway. And after he was done scanning, he told the people behind us that he had to go to the bathroom and would be back in however long it takes him to go to the bathroom. Judging by the optics, might be a long time. Anyway, I didn't share that story to make fun of the guy or to be mean or anything. Maybe I did a little bit, but the original point was, if it's fitness, you gotta fix with yourself, and you're looking at your big picture goals, and that's gonna be a thing that could help you get to that next level. And you need to make some improvements. Consider the source of whoever you're turning to help you get to that thing. I think that was my main point, original point there. I got a little off track. So I'll get us back on track here. Goal oriented. Write down the things that you want to accomplish over the next 1, 3, and 5 years, what you want your life to look like, what you want to have, what you want to look like, what you want to drive, what you want your business to be, whatever that looks like for you. Write it down. Take the action steps necessary to get to those things. And if you need help identifying the first things first mentality and what you need to be focused on at each step of the way, just reach out to us. We're a phone call away, or really, actually, I'd prefer it if you emailed us. Email Jason at revfran.com, and we'll talk. Or hit up our website, revfran.com. Go to the resources section. Go to fill out any one of the forms that you can find on there, and one of our qualified advisors will reach out to you to discuss what those first things need to look like in order to get you to that big picture goal that you got in mind for your life. So that's it for today, guys. We thank you for listening, and why don't you go ahead and subscribe to the podcast? I mean, that'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it? Every time one of these comes out, you'll get a notification. Man, that's pretty neat, right? Back to the original. I'm gonna keep on talking here. Don't tune out just yet. Listen, why do I do these podcasts? Really, I don't really get much out of this stuff. You see all these people doing podcasts. There's other franchise related podcasts out there. They get some people to listen to them. It's probably their mom and like their employees and a handful of other people. Mine's the same thing right now. Okay? Mine's the same thing. I'm not pulling in Bill Simmons numbers here. All right? Why do I do it? That's a great question. Why do I do this? Oh, here's why. Because I want to eventually, when anybody thinks of franchises, they reach out to me. That's what I want. I want them to immediately think, if they think I want to buy a franchise, I want them to think the name Jason Revere and Revolution Franchise Brokers. Those are the two things I want them to think. And I do know one thing. If I don't do these things, it will never happen. If I do them, will it happen? I don't know. But I do know that if I don't do them, it definitely won't happen. So the action steps that I need to take, all right, I'm talking to myself here, action steps that I need to take in order to get to where I want to go as far as my big picture is these things. The YouTube videos, the podcast here that you're listening to. Thanks for listening, by the way, Mom and my wife, and maybe my friend, my brother-in-law, Bobby. I bet you he'll be one of the listeners to this eventually. So hey, what's up, Bobby? Good to see you. By the way, he's got a really cool company out there. If you're in the marketing tech space, it's called Stitch. Hit up Stitch. Cool company. They'll help you to implement all different types of marketing technology and CDPs and a bunch of other acronym soups that are out there. And if you're a big company, small company, want to get to becoming a big company, him and his company there at Stitch are the go-to resource to understand how to implement the latest marketing technologies to help get you to where you want to get. A little plug for my brother-in-law, Bobby. Thanks for listening. But all of these things that we do here at Revolution Franchise Brokers and all of the other podcasters that are out there and all of the franchise organizations out there that are doing things like this, they're all doing it for the same reason, to get attention. And what my big picture goals are is to become the go-to resource. When I write that down, I want to be the go-to resource for everybody who is interested in owning a franchise, to help them from making the wrong choice, to help expedite the process of buying the right franchise, finding the right franchise, and just getting the no nonsense resources that they're looking for, so they're not bamboozled by some of these scam franchises that are out there, because there's so many great franchises out there that really do a great job, that the best interests of their franchisees in mind, but there's also the really bad ones. And if you don't know, if you don't know what you don't know, you can get hurt. So, from my point of view, my big picture is I want to help everybody who's interested in buying a franchise out there, to give them the guidance and the advice and the coaching and the resources to make the right decision for them and their families going forward. And the only way that I can think of to do that, to become that, is to put in the elbow grease, to put in the hours, to do these types of things, these types of podcasts, and these types of engagement things that we're trying to do here. Again, the YouTube videos, the blogging, all the email campaigns, the ads that we're running, anytime that I can get on somebody else's podcast, right, going onto those things, even if I don't want to. Like, who wants to do that? And I know I'm going to be going on a podcast that very few people are going to listen to. I get it. I know it. But it's about keeping that big picture in mind, so I know if I put in this type of work, eventually I'll get closer to what that big picture looks like. And the same thing goes true for you. If it's becoming a franchise owner and you only have $20,000 liquid and you have to get to 30 or 40 based on the metrics of the franchisor is putting into play, where the requirements that they've got, or whatever it looks like, and you got to take that $1 and put it into that bank account. You just start. I went to John Maxwell, a famous author, motivational speaker. He talks about leadership. That's his thing that he talks about. And he shared a story about how when people ask him, how do you write 25 books, or however many he's written? That's amazing. Well, how do you do that? And he just holds up a pen and a piece of paper, and he just writes things down. He goes, that's how. You just start. You just start writing. And eventually, you'll write enough to fill up 25 books. Sounds simple, doesn't it? My goodness. And it is. It is. So just start. First things first. Get started. And do the things that are going to get you closer to what that big picture is. But if you don't know what the big picture is, it's real hard to get one step closer to it. That's why you got to be goal-oriented. Write it all down. Come up with those things. If you want some help coming up with those, again, revfran.com. Click subscribe. Give me a rating, too. Come on. I don't see any ratings on this thing. Give me a rating. Heck, if it's a 1-star, give me a 1-star. If you think I suck, at least that'll help me to improve myself. All right? Click subscribe. Love it, hate it, whatever. And we'll catch you on the next episode of Franchise Revolution. Be excellent, guys.